I never used to believe stories about strange lights in the sky. Whenever someone claimed they had seen something impossible, I always assumed there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe they misidentified an aircraft. Maybe it was a weather balloon, a drone, or simply their imagination playing tricks on them. I considered myself a practical person. Everything had an explanation. That belief lasted until the summer of 2023. At the time, I was working remotely for a software company. After months of burnout, I decided to rent a small cabin deep in the mountains for 3 weeks. The place was exactly what I wanted. Isolated, quiet, and miles away from the nearest town. There was no traffic, no city lights, and almost no phone service. Just forests, hills, and endless silence. The first few days were perfect. I spent my mornings working from a small desk overlooking the valley and my evenings sitting on the porch, watching the sunset disappear behind the mountains. It felt like the kind of place where nothing bad could ever happen. On the 5th night, I noticed something strange. Around midnight, I stepped outside to get some fresh air. The sky was incredibly clear. Thousands of stars covered the darkness above me. Then I saw a light. At first, it looked like a star, but after a few seconds, it started moving. Not like a plane, not like a satellite. It shot across the sky at an impossible speed before stopping completely. I blinked several times. The light remained perfectly still. Then it moved again. This time, it zigzagged sharply to the side. The movement was so sudden that I physically felt uncomfortable watching it. No aircraft I knew of could move that way. I watched it for almost 2 minutes before it suddenly vanished. Not faded. Vanished. One moment it was there. The next moment it wasn't. I stood outside for a long time trying to process what I had seen. Eventually I convinced myself there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe it was some kind of military aircraft. Maybe an optical illusion. I went to bed and forgot about it. Or at least I tried to. The next night it happened again. Only this time there were 3 lights. They appeared above the ridge overlooking the valley. All 3 moved independently before forming a perfect triangle. The formation hovered in complete silence. I expected to hear engines. Nothing. Not even the faintest sound. The lights remained there for several minutes. Then they began descending. Slowly, deliberately, toward the forest below. Something about the movement made my stomach twist. The lights weren't random. They looked controlled. Intentional. As if they were searching for something. Or someone. I watched until they disappeared behind the trees. That night I barely slept. Every little sound outside seemed amplified. Branches scraping against the cabin walls. Wind moving through the trees. The occasional crack of wood settling. Everything felt different. The following morning I hiked down toward the area where I had last seen the lights. I wasn't expecting to find anything, yet after almost an hour of searching, I came across something unusual. A circular patch of ground. The grass inside the circle was completely flattened, not burned, not damaged, just pressed, flat as if something incredibly heavy had rested there. The circle measured roughly 20 feet across. There were no tire tracks, no footprints, nothing that explained how it got there. For the first time, I felt genuinely uneasy. I returned to the cabin earlier than usual. That evening, dark clouds rolled across the mountains. A storm was coming. The wind grew stronger as night approached. By 10 o'clock, rain was hammering against the roof. Lightning flashed constantly in the distance. Around midnight, the power went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness. I grabbed a flashlight and lit a few candles. The storm continued raging outside. Then something happened. The rain stopped. Instantly. Not gradually. Not slowly. 1 second it was pouring. The next second there was complete silence. I walked to the window. The storm clouds were gone. The sky was clear. The stars had returned. I stared outside in confusion. A storm doesn't simply disappear. Not like that. Then I saw the lights again. This time they were close. Very close. 3 glowing spheres hovered above the treetops, only a few hundred yards away. My heartbeat immediately accelerated. The lights drifted silently through the darkness. No engines. No sound. Nothing. Then every electronic device inside the cabin shut off. My flashlight died. My phone died. Even the battery-powered lantern stopped working. The only illumination came from the strange lights outside. For several seconds, I couldn't move. I simply stood there watching them. Then all 3 lights merged into one. The resulting glow became brighter than anything I had ever seen. The entire forest lit up. Every tree, every branch, every rock. The night became brighter than day. And then I noticed something standing near the tree line. A figure. Tall. Motionless. Watching the cabin. At first I thought it was a person, but the proportions seemed wrong. Its limbs appeared unusually long. Its head seemed slightly larger than normal. The figure didn't move. Neither did I. We simply stared at one another. A cold sensation spread through my entire body. I wanted to look away. I couldn't. Then the figure took a step forward. I immediately stumbled backward. The movement broke whatever strange paralysis I was experiencing. I ran deeper into the cabin and locked every door. For nearly an hour I sat there listening, waiting, expecting footsteps, expecting something to happen. Nothing did. Eventually, exhaustion overcame fear. I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through the windows. Everything looked normal. The power had returned. My phone worked again. The forest appeared exactly as it always had. Part of me wondered if I had imagined the entire thing. Until I checked the time. My last memory was shortly after midnight. Yet my phone showed 7:47 a.m. More than 7 hours had passed. I remembered almost none of it. The missing time bothered me more than anything else. I couldn't explain it. I couldn't account for it. And the questions only grew worse when I reviewed my cabin security camera footage. The camera had stopped recording shortly after the lights appeared. Not unusual. Electronics fail. What was unusual was the final frame. For a split second before the recording ended, the image captured a bright object hovering directly above the cabin. The object was enormous, far larger than any helicopter, far larger than any drone. Its shape was difficult to make out because of the brightness surrounding it, but it was definitely there. Something had been above the cabin, something physical, something real. I left the mountains the next day. I told nobody what happened. Not my friends, not my family. Nobody. Years have passed since then. I've searched endlessly for explanations. Maybe there is one. Maybe there isn't. But every now and then, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I remember the figure standing at the edge of the forest, watching, waiting. And the part that still terrifies me isn't the lights. It isn't the missing hours. It isn't even the possibility that I encountered something unknown. It's the fact that before the camera cut out, the object wasn't above the forest. It wasn't above the valley. It wasn't even above the mountains. It was directly above me. And for 7 hours I have absolutely no idea what happened next.